Hi everybody, welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. I'm Richard, and today we're going to be taking a look at another holster we're going to make. I'm going to make it similar to the one I made with the fringe on it. This was for the 1851 Navy with the seed beads and the fringe and the spots on there and everything. It's going to be similar in that it's going to be kind of a fancy one like that, but this is going to be for an 1872 open top, and I'm going to do it kind of a cross draw. And this one's going to have some fancy little tassels on it because I got to looking around on Pinterest and I saw some ideas for some holsters, and I thought, man, this one is really cool, so I got to make something like that. So I got my little horsehair tassels I've made up, and I'll show you how I made those too, with some turquoise and wood beads on it and everything. And they're going to be hanging. It'll be a cross draw, so it'll sit like that on the belt, and they'll be hanging from right here. I'm not going to do suede on it. I'm not going to do the fringe on it, but I am going to do a different overlay on the top of it. And I'm going to do this one lined also. I'm going to take I think it's a 4 to 5 ounce for the main body of the holster. I'm going to line it with a 2 to 3 ounce, and then I'll have that overlay piece on the top of it here. And I won't forget the strap on this one, because on the cross draw, it's going to be made on the back side of it there, and it'll fold over and get sewn to it. So hopefully I won't forget that one, because it's already going to be attached. Anyways, I'm going to get busy on making the pattern here for it, because I do not have a pattern for 1872 open top in a cross draw, so I got to make my own, and then I'll go from there. Okay, so I've got my paper out here. I've got my 1872 open top there. It is unloaded, and I've started to trace out my design here. Now, with this being a lined holster, it's going to be a little bit thicker, so I've got to make sure I've got plenty of room over here. Plus, this one has an ejector rod on it, so it's going to take a little more volume inside of the end there to get that to go down in there without, you know, stretching it too much. Also, with this being a cross draw, I'm going to have a tab coming off of here that's going to fold over and go on the back side there, and that'll let the gun sit at an angle. So I'm going to get this all sketched out and then see what I get. Okay, I think I've got something worked out here. This will be the flap that's going to fold over this way, because this will be up against my body. This will be the outside piece of it. And to make sure I get this line and this line the same, I'm going to cut this out and then fold it over. And I've cut the strap piece there pretty big, just to make sure if I make a mistake, I can whittle it down some, but without taping a bunch of paper together, it's hard to make it bigger. But I've got more paper. All right, and that's what it'll look like, all folded up and everything, and then the belt goes through there, of course. Now, I did what they call an extreme angle on this one. I could have made it a little less exaggerated, I guess, but I wanted it to be a real cross draw. So we'll see if this fits in here, how well it fits in here. And it's looking to me like it is way too small already. So like I said, the good thing is with papers, I can do it over and over and over again. But with this being, like I said, I'm going to do, it'll actually be 3 layers of leather on here. I think the end there is okay. I just need to get a little wider as it goes up. Of course, I will put a welt in there too, and that'll help with it. It's going to be real thick right here, that's for sure, but it definitely needs to be just a little bit bigger. But I think the angle and the strap and everything on there will work out pretty good. I could rotate this a little bit to make it not quite hang so exaggerated. And plus the weight of it, I'm wondering, you know, if you get too much weight out there, it's going to want to tip anyways. So I may do that a little bit. Anyways, try number 2. Okay, so all I've done on here was I decided to make it a 1/4 inch wider. So I went with, I'm sorry, 1/2 inch wider. Yeah, 1/2 inch wider. So what I did was I took my center line, measured over a 1/4 inch there, 1/4 inch there, same thing from the center line the other way, 1/4 inch, and then I put my line over there, so I moved this side over a 1/4 inch, and then I'll move the lines over here and make this side over a 1/4 inch. And that should make it a 1/2 inch wider. 1/4 inch on either side, both sides. All right, get this one cut out and give it a try. Okay, so I got my new pattern cut out, and I think that is going to work just fine. I will not have as much of the trigger exposed as I do on some of my other holsters, but it will be somewhat exposed because I want to get a little more area here, a little wider in there. I will put a trigger shelf in the welt so that it will keep it from going down too far. Now I do have it quite a bit from the end there, which is okay. I'm going to leave it like that, and I am going to put a toe plug in this one because I like the looks of toe plugs. They're just kind of a pain to put in, but they really make everything look a whole lot better. And I think that'll work out pretty good for me right there. The nice thing about these is you can flip them around, whether it's a left hand or right hand. So it'll actually be like that. It'll go in there. We'll get it all squared away. Okay, I've got all my pieces cut out. This is going to be the main body for my holster. And like I said, this one is going to be lined. So I'm going to cut out one piece where this is going to be the good side, and then it'll get folded over. This becomes the front, that becomes the flat. And then I'm going to cut a liner out where this side will be the good side, and it's going to be made from a 2 to 3 ounce really lightweight leather, and that's going to go on the inside. It'll get glued to this. I'm going to do a lot of stuff to it, I guess. I'm going to punch all my holes and everything around there. This is going to be my overlay piece that's going to go on there. It's a different type of leather, kind of a antique looking leather anyways. And then this will get folded. It'll get glued and sewn onto there. I'm also going to do a little bit of the bead work around the edge, so that's going to take me a while. I'm not going to do any bead work on the back of this, just from, probably right in there around to just over halfway mark there, because this side's going to be up against my body and I don't want those beads rubbing on there and probably breaking off. I do have my welt cut out to go on there, and I did go ahead and pre-cut a toe plug. This was the piece that I cut off the end there, so it's the right width, and I went ahead and folded it over, and that should be about the shape of my toe plug. And then I went ahead and cut a little teardrop piece out that's quite a bit smaller than that, so that this hopefully will fit in there for the toe plug. If not, I can adjust it and everything. But I'm going to go ahead and get my pieces of leather cut out. I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of veg tan for the body, one for the liner, one for the body itself. I got to cut out the chrome tan piece of antique leather for that. I've got some thick leather I'm going to use for the toe plug and the welt. Okay, so this is the piece of leather I'm using for the overlay on there. This is a water buffalo crazy horse. It's kind of a distressed look. I really like the looks of it. I think it's going to look good on this holster. Now, I am wearing a Weaver t-shirt. They do not sponsor me, but I do have an affiliate link in the description box below. So if you'll expand that, hit that little arrow over there, expand it, and then click on it and go there. It'll take you to Weaver, and you can look at all the products they've got, and they've got tons of stuff and all kind of regular leathers, veg tans, chrome tans, exotics, whatever you want. Everything from ostrich to shell cordovan, just some really fancy stuff, and they've got some good bargain stuff in there too. All the tools you could ever need to do any of the leather work you want to do. And I have dropped off a couple bucks of my own there, and I'll continue to do more because I really enjoy doing this leather stuff. It just takes a little bit of time and a whole lot of patience. Okay, so that's going to be my 3 layers of leather. I got the crazy horse on the outside there. I'm going to tool a pattern around here. I'm going to stitch the whole thing all the way around, which is going to be a pain. And I'm going to put the seed beads in there, and I'm going to put some spots in there and all kind of stuff. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to dye this piece, get it all marked up and everything, and I'm going to do my spots and everything all the way through the crazy horse and this piece of 5 to 6 ounce, and then the liner will cover up all the backs of the spots, the stitching on the seed beads. Of course, the seed beads will only be through here, so it's going to be a little process, but it's going to be fun. Okay, so I think I've gotten a little better with my bead work. They are not crowded, but what I'm doing is I'm putting 4 beads on a stitch, so they're not perfectly tied down in a spot, so they will move around a little bit. But I think it looks a little better than it did before. So what I'm doing is 4 blues and 2 yellows. Right now I got 2, I ended up with 2 yellows, 2 blues, so I'm going to put 2 more blues on there. And to pick these things up, I just take the needle and leave them sitting right there on the table, and we're going to pick up 2 blues. We're going to pick up 2 yellows. You got to watch these beads too, because they are pretty inconsistent. Of course, they're very tiny too. So the 2 blues and the 2 yellows will continue my 4 blues there in a line. So what I do now is pull them all the way down. Instead of guessing where my next stitch was going to be, I pull them all the way down, and I split the 2 threads with my needle and push them back, and then line my needle up with my line that I'm following there. And it's a very tiny needle, so luckily this is pretty thin leather, so I can take and push it right on through there and go ahead and pull it through. Now I'm not crowding them, so I mean they're there. You move these out of the way, and then what I do is flip it over, and right where my thread has come through, that's the end of the last bead. I pull it back a little bit, and then I estimate where that last bead is, and then punch my needle through again, so I'm making a back stitch there, and I'm only wanting to come back 1 bead. So then I fight my thread, try to keep it from knotting up like it did just there, and I should be back 1 bead. Now I'm going to take my needle and run it back through that last bead. So every 4th bead is actually tied down. So the rest of them in between the 4 beads will move around a little bit. I think it's a little better. It's kind of hard to do it on a curve there when I'm doing 4 beads at a time. I mean, it might have been better if I would use smaller groups, maybe 2 or maybe even 1, but it would take me forever. So I'm doing 4. So now I'm going to put 4 blue beads on there. And again, I'll bring them all the way down. And what I was doing before on the other holster where I was crowding the beads was I would guess where my stitches were, and if I was too close, then it would crowd them. So again, right at the end of it, I'm pushing back on them a little bit so they go back up against the other beads, but not so hard that it'll make them buckle or crowd. And there's my 4 beads right there. Like I said, they're going to kind of want to tend to stay in a straight line, even though I'm trying to follow this curve. It should look a little better when I get down here at the very bottom. Everything should be nice and straight. The curved line, but I'm okay with it. Okay, I finally got the seed beads on there, and I don't think they look quite as bad as they did on the other holster. A little wobbly there, but none of the bead crowding like I had on the other one. The other one, I got some serious messed up areas right in here. But this one looks a whole lot better, and that will be the outside there. And I think it'll look pretty good on there. But I've still got some other things to do. I've got to get my spots in there. I've got to get this, the thinner piece, the 2 to 3 ounces, the liner that goes on the inside of it. This is going to be the outside part of it. This is going to cover that. And then this is going to be tooled down here. Plus, I'm going to have my stitch groove, my stitch line all the way around the outside there. So I've got to get that done. So what I'm going to do is get the liner piece and the overlay piece out of the way, get this thing cased, and get my stitch groove on there. I'm going to do an 1/8 inch on there. I did a 1/4 inch on the seed beads, so I'm going to do an 1/8 inch on here. Okay, so the leather's all dry now, and it's a little darker at the bottom than I really wanted it to be, and that's just because I rubbed over it a couple more times than I probably should have. The inside is about the right color I wanted, I guess. I don't know that it looks 100% right with that color on there. It doesn't look bad. But anyways, I got to get this glued onto here, and then I'm going to put my spots on there, because the spots that I've got have some really long pins on them, and they will go all the way through there. I did a little test piece with them, both a 3/8 or a 5/16 and a 1/4 inch, and it's the perfect length on those prongs to go through that top and embed really nicely into the 5 to 6 ounce underneath there. So I'm going to get those put on there, and then once I get all that done, I'm going to do some stitching, because I've got to punch holes in this, and I didn't punch them in there ahead of time because I want to make sure they line up with the holes I've got in there. So I'm going to make sure they do, and then I'm going to stitch around here, and then I'm going to have to make some stitches across here for the belt and stitch. It's going to be kind of a pain, but I'll get it done anyways. All right, my spot is set, and the prongs have been driven all the way down into the cutting board there, the poundo board. And now I can flip it over and take and fold those prongs over, and it is secured there. All right, I'm not going to burn the edges of those because that shouldn't be flammable anymore, but it'll be held down in there. It is not going to come undone. Famous last words. Okay, now I can stick these two together. Okay, I'm gonna start punching these holes in here. Now, one of the things you may have seen me do, may have not, I got this little ball of wax here. And if you put a little wax on these tines, on these prongs on your stitching punches, it makes them a lot easier to go in and come out. Of course, if they're highly polished, it makes it a lot easier too. And most of the time people use beeswax. I bought some beeswax, but it's kind of hard. This is actually the wax that they put around the Baby Bell cheese, and it leaves a nice little coating. You want to take any extra off, but it leaves a nice coating on there, and it's able to go in there and come out pretty easily. Hole punching time. And this is the thickest part here because I have to go through the welt there too. Okay, so here's the little extras that are going on here. This is going to have these little tassels hanging from it, and these are made from, this is horsehair, this is a cone bead that's on here. I've got a yellow wood bead, I've got a turquoise bead, another yellow wood bead, and then I've got the two threads coming through there. It's the same thread I used to sew up the holster. Now I've got one here, and I've never done this before, I've never seen any videos on it before or anything. So what I plan on doing is stitching this to the back half of the holster, and I've got the welt on the back half, so this will push the tassels up towards the front edge of the holster. So what I'm hoping to do is sew these on there. I've got 6 of them. I'm going to put them in this little space right here, just where the overlay is on it. So that's going to be what I'm going to attempt to do here. So I've got 24 holes in there, and I've got 6 of these. So it should be every 4 holes. 4 times 6, 6, 6, 12, 12. Yeah, every 4 holes. So I'm going to start off down here and hope for the best anyways. Now it is going to make it a little difficult for me to finish this edge on here, but I'm going to leave it hang out just a little bit like that, and I'm going to do a saddle stitch with it and then tie it off on the other side. Boy, I really didn't leave myself much thread there. Give you a little closer look at it. That's kind of what I'm going for right there. And hopefully it will all work out. Of course, this will all get glued together and everything too, so it should hold them in there pretty nicely. The holster should hang just about like that, so I'm hoping. All right, I've just tied me a square knot on there. It is saddle stitched in there, only 1 stitch. And I am going to melt the ends of these because I don't want them to pull through. They should stay. All right, there's 1, 5 more to go. Okay, now it's time to do a whole lot of stitching, and I got to do it in stages. I got to sew this, the top part of the holster there, up to there. This is, I've got a little pattern on here, and this is where it's going to attach here to form the belt loop. So right now, this to here, and then from here down to where the welt starts. And then I'll get this folded over and then sew this D on here so that holds that together for a belt loop. And then I'm going to wet this thing down and I'm going to get it folded, and then I'm going to do my stitching all the way down the sides there, and then the toe plug. I got to get that put in there. I'm not even sure, 100% sure if it's going to fit right. I don't even know if this thing is going to hold the pistol right, because I've just got faith in it. I kind of like the little tassels. Anyways, I'm gonna get stitching. Okay, so I've got the whole thing stitched together finally, and that was kind of a bear. I had to fight with these things to get the threads around them and all that good stuff. But it's all in there, and I did wet mold it when I finished sewing it up, and I crammed this, it's a Denix replica of an 1873, but I made this one specifically for the 1872, which it fits just fine anyways. This thing, I don't have to worry about it getting wet. I put a little bit of plastic around it to give it a little more volume, so it'll stretch it out a little bit more than it needs to be. And the 1873 fits in there just perfect. Let's grab the 1872 and see how it does. Okay, so here's the 1872 open top, and it fits in there a little snugger than the 1873. Now, of course, with this being a replica, the dimensions probably aren't exactly the same. They're probably pretty close, but it fits in there just fine. Got a little bit of retention. I may wrap a little plastic around this thing and stuff it in there and let it relax a little bit. But I've still got to do the toe plug on there, because I did cut out a toe plug before I made the thing, and it was too big, so I decided to cut it down a little bit, and I cut it down too small, so it will just, it barely fits in there, but it needs to be a little bit bigger because there's a gap there. I guess it could work. Yeah, I may do that, because all I got to do is tighten it up a little bit there and it'll be fine. I'll go ahead and do that. Put a groove in it and sew it in there. I think it'll be all right. Okay, it is all glued in there with contact cement, which is my preferred adhesive of choice for leatherwork. Now I've got to get this thing sewn up. Yay, let the fun begin. Okay, the toe plug is in, and that is probably absolutely the worst toe plug I have ever done in my life. It is just horrible. The nice thing is the stitching on the outside, the holes are filled and they're not too bad. But that underside, luckily the only person that's going to see it is whoever I'm having a gunfight with in town. But other than that, it's horrible. Anyways, I'm going to trim some of this up a little bit, sand it down. Then I'm going to have to hit everything with some dye to get it darkened up where it needs to be. Not this piece, so I do not want to dye that any darker than what it is. And then again, I'm going to stick that 1872 in there with the plastic wrapped around it so it'll stretch it a little bit more, because it fits the 1873 better than it fits the 1872. But, I mean, you can use it for either one. All right, guys, there it is. It is finally done. It is the beaded fringed 1872 open top holster, and I've got it all shaped and everything to fit the firearm just fine. And I kind of like it. It was a lot of work with this thing. Here at the trigger guard area, there are actually 7 layers of leather there. I got the liner, I've got the body, and I've got the crazy horse, plus I've got a really thick welt in there. So that was a job getting those needles through there. And I got these stitched into the holster in the stitch holes, the regular stitch holes too. So it was a job, and it was a learning process. I'd never made one like this, and figuring out the order to put everything together in was a little tricky, and there's some things I would do differently if I had done it again. I got the toe plug in there, not my best toe plug, got a little bit of scars on it from trying to run the stitching punch through there, but it's in. It fits good. I like the looks of it, and the way it hangs is just like that, and it's pretty cool, I think. I need to do a belt to go with this thing, and I've got some ideas for it, but I'm not going to start on it just yet. Not too bad. It was quite a job to make this holster. Like I said, I never made one like this before, but I think it turned out pretty good. Anyways, thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review and taking a look at another holster video with me. If you could, hit this button up here to check out some of my other videos, and hit this button down here to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.